Epic words. Words the Torah tells us that change mankind. God said to Avram, to Abraham, Lech lecha, go for you. Go, leave. Go start a dynasty. Go start a nation. Lech lecha, go for you, me'artecha, from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's home. There's one problem. Why does it say lech lecha, go for you? It should say go, leave. The Hebrew word for leave is tzei. The Hebrew word for go is lech. What's lech lecha, go for you? Rav Hirsch, one of the great commentators, explains that whenever we're told, whenever the word lecha, to you, for you, is put in when discussing leaving or traveling, it's separate yourself. It's not go there, it's separate from here. What Avram's being told is lech lecha, leave. Leave your land, leave your birthplace, leave your father's home. That's the key. The key is separate yourself. The Hebrew word for land is eretz. Rav Hirsch says the word eretz is connected to the word eres, which is the root of the word erus in marriage. Marriage is this tremendous, incredibly deep bond between two people. We have a bond with our land. When you're an American, you feel a sense of pride. You talk like an American, you act like an American, you eat certain types of foods, you have certain celebrations during the year. And somebody from a different country can't understand it. You speak to immigrants, they don't understand why we have certain celebrations or why certain things are so dear to us. And certainly if you're born American, you were born here, you grew up here, you spent your life here. I've spent most of my life in the United States, but I spent a number of years in Israel. And you see the culture is so different, the way of speaking, the way of interacting. Even certain values are different. The culture is so different. When you come from a certain country, you have certain beliefs, you have certain mode of behavior. And all the more so in your father's home. The way a wise woman once said, she said, normal is what you experienced at home. You know, if you had the privilege of growing up in a home where a mother and father spoke softly to each other and respectfully, that's normal. If you grow up in a home where people take responsibility for their actions, that's normal. If you grew up in a home where people were respectful of people who had differing values or ideals, that's normal. But if you grew up in a home where people went from 0 to 60 in no time and people immediately got angry and passionate, it becomes normal that you yell at people, or if people are passive aggressive in your home that you grew up in, that's how you relate to people. Normal is what you experience there. And Hashem's telling Avram, leave the values you got from where you grew up, from where you were born, from your father's home. Leave all those ideals, those values, those modes of behavior, change it all, get away from all of it. Why? What's so terrible? So we have to understand where Avram was coming from. We need some historical context. What was the world like at the time? The end of last week's Parshas Noach, we learned about Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Bavel. What was this Tower of Bavel? The Torah is very cryptic. The Torah doesn't tell us much about it. The Torah says, Vayomru, and they said, they traveled east. The entire world was one language, and they traveled east, and they said, Hava nilbana levenim. Let us make bricks and burn wherever there's fire. And the bricks served to them for stone and the mortar for clay. And they said, come, let us build a city and a tower whose top shall reach the heaven. Thus we shall make ourselves a name, lest we be scattered upon the face of the whole earth. 2 verses. Let's get together. Let's create a furnace, let's build bricks, and let's build a tower in a city. What's this tower and city? Says Rav Hirsch, they were trying to build was a society, a civilization where the end-all, be-all is society, is the government, is the civilization. That's everything. The Medrash says that their attitude was when they had bricks, and they took bricks further up on the tower, as the tower got taller and taller, and they had to take those bricks up, and some of the bricks would fall. It was a tragedy. It was a calamity. The bricks fell. The bricks that are the building blocks of civilization fell. But if a human being died along the way, their attitude was, that's what will happen. Along the way of building the great edifice of society, there will be sacrifices. There will be lives lost. But they're necessary. They have to die for the greater good. That was the view of society. You have no significance as an individual. You do not make a difference. What's important is society. What's important is the government. What's important is the civilization. But you make no difference. You're just a number. You're just a cog. That is what Hashem says leave. Get away from that belief, that belief system. There is incredible value in every human being. And on the contrary, the significance of a community is that it services the individual. The significance of a government is that it's there for all its citizens. That's what's important. Chayav kol adam lomar b'shvili never olam. Every human being is obligated to say the world was created for me. I bring something to the world that nobody else brings. I am vital. I am critical to the world. If a human being dies, it's a tragedy. It's terrible. We mourn the loss of every individual because every human being has incredible significance and importance. Hashem says, leave. You cannot build my world. You cannot build the dynasty that's critical for the world, the dynasty that will eventually culminate in receiving the Torah. You cannot build that as long as you're inculcated by those alien beliefs, by those beliefs of society is everything and an individual is meaningless. No. Get away from that. Far away from that. Lech lecha. Cut yourself away from there. And where do you go to? The Torah tells us, what does Hashem say? Hashem tells Avram, I will make you into a great nation. Despite leaving where you're settled and where you're known and where you have a reputation, leave all of that and start over. And what will happen? I'll make you into a great nation. I will bless you. Your name will be great. You will be a blessing. It should have said, seemingly the verse should have said, you will be blessed. You will receive blessings. No, you will be a blessing. What does that mean, you will be a blessing? People, says Reverse, people will look at you and they'll say, that is what society should be creating. That is what humanity should be. That is a godly person. That's how we should live our lives. They look at you and they say, this is it. There's a book called The Boys in the Boat. The Boys in the Boat is a book about the rowing team of University of Washington that won the gold medal in the Olympics in 1936. Very interesting book. Explains the state of affairs in the United States at the time, what was going on in Germany because the Olympics were in Berlin that year. Very interesting. But in the middle of the book, they're writing about the captain of the rowing team. And the quote, something to the effect of, in his presence all stood, for he represented everything that God's children would stand for. In other words, sometimes somebody important walks into a room and we tell people, stand up, stand up. As the person's walking into the room, you're standing behind the person and you're motioning to the kids in the classroom like this. Come on, stand up. Because they don't know to stand up. But there's certain people that you see them, you stand up in reverence. You stop talking, you stop making jokes. You get quiet, you get respectful, you get almost a sense of awe and trepidation around them because who they are is something so amazing and so special. That was that captain of that rowing team. He was the person that no one had to be told to stand up for because you naturally stood in his presence. If not him, who would one stand for? That's Vehei Bracha. Vehei Bracha is be a blessing. People see you, that's who we should be. That's what life is all about. And we have the challenge of Vehei Bracha day in, day out. You know, the Torah tells us we're going to read on Shabbat, on Shabbos, we're going to read the words Lech Lecha. Vayomer Hashem el Avram. God told Avram, Lech Lecha, go for you. And in a certain sense, each and every one of us is an Avram. Every one of us is an Avram. We say the first blessing of the Amidah, the son Shmona Esrei, is we thank Hashem, acknowledge Hashem, Magin Avram, the protector of Avram, the protector of Abraham. What does that have to do with me? The fact that Hashem, God protected Abraham 3,000 years ago. Says the Hasidic commentaries that deep within each and every person, there's an Avram, there's an Abraham, there's something pure and holy that Avram put into every one of us that can't be corrupted. And Hashem protects that and ensures that that stays pristine and holy, and we can build on that. We can build our lives on that. We are an Avram. And Hashem's telling us, Lech Lecha. Rabbeinu Bachai, one of the early commentaries, says that if you take the word Lech Lecha and you put it together as one word, you get the word Lichluch, dirt. Each of us has our dirt that we want to get rid of. Each of us has our stuff. We have our baggage. We have our things, whether it came from our parents' home, whether it came from society, whether it came from stuff we experienced. We all have Lech Lecha. We all Lech Lecha from the Lichluch. We all have to leave that dirt. We all have to leave that stuff behind us. We all have to move and elevate ourselves. The challenge of Lech Lecha is to each and every one of us, day in, day out. Day in, day out, Lech Lecha. You know, this morning I had a challenge of Vehei Bracha. It's not just Lech Lecha, to leave the negative of Vehei Bracha. Be a source of blessing. Be that blessing. Be that role model. The way to be the role model is first I have to leave. First I have to leave the negativity. Once I leave the negativity, then I can come to the Vehei Bracha. This morning I had a challenge. A few weeks ago we noticed one of our appliances was not working right. And we called, we have a warranty, we called, and the technician came, said, diagnosed the problem. We need to order a part. Once the part's ordered, be sure to call us. We'll send the technician out. The part came a couple of days ago. We checked. They'd already scheduled an appointment for yesterday. And we're waiting and waiting. Time comes and goes. The window of time, the technician never came. So I call and they say, well, the part never arrived, so of course we cancel. I said, but the part did arrive. They said, well, we didn't have it in our system. And they said, okay, we'll set an appointment for tomorrow. This morning came, and I get an email, there's a problem, I need to call. I called, they say, well, the technician's not coming because the part never came. I said, it came 2 days ago, and I called to you yesterday. And I was getting hot under the collar. What is going on over here? I just need my appliance fixed. It's affecting the functionality of our kitchen. We need to get things going. And it was the challenge of Vehei Bracha. I was reminding myself, the person I'm speaking to, they didn't undermine my appointment. They didn't know anything about my appointment until I called them 10 seconds ago. They're just trying to help. It's not their fault. They work for a company that made a couple of mistakes or maybe has some competency issues. It's not their fault. Vehei Bracha is the decision we make. Am I going to yell at that service person on the other side of the phone, or am I going to stay civil and understanding? Minute by minute, we have the decision Vehei Bracha. There's a prayer we say in the mornings, a beautiful prayer. One line. I'll tell you one line of the prayer. La'olam yehei adam yarei shamayim b'seter v'goloi. Always a person should have fear of heaven when they're private, when they're hidden, and in public. In other words, sometimes we have two personas. We have the persona of who we are out there and the persona of who we are privately. And it's fairly normal that maybe we smile quicker when we're out there. Maybe we're nicer when we're out there, more considerate. And inside, maybe not as much. Maybe we're not as focused spiritually. This is the challenge we have in life of aligning ourselves. But the message of Vehei Bracha is be a source of blessing. Be a blessing. Be a role model. Be a beacon of light. Attract people with who you are. And that'll bring them, that'll transform them by just who you are, wakes them up to who they can be and who they should be. The greatness of every individual is without limit. We cannot imagine the greatness of what each of us can accomplish. But it starts with Lech Lecha. Leave your lichluch, leave your dirt, leave your stuff, and then Vehei Bracha. Be a blessing. Be a role model. Be a beacon of light. So the question to ask yourself today, and the question that I'm asking you as we come to the parsha of Lech Lecha, is what stuff do you have to leave? What's the stuff you have to drop? And what bracha are you going to be? What's the source of light? What's that beacon of light going to look like in your life? Be that, and let's transform the world. Have a wonderful Shabbos.